What's up, everyone, and welcome to On the Lines podcast. I'm your boy, Coach Booker, and we have some absolutely great guests here tonight, man. And first of all, I want to say thanks to everyone who subscribe, who like, and share our podcast. Without you, this podcast would go nowhere. So thank you. Thanks, everyone, for sharing our content. So tonight, man, we did the whole Women's History Month, man. I don't know who created that, right? They gave us Black History Month in February, and then they give us Women's History Month, and then they all go so fast, probably some two of the fastest months. So I decided, hey, we're gonna extend this Women's History Month, man, because there's a lot of interesting women out here, man, that people need to know about. They need to hear about. And I got two interesting women on the phone tonight, and they do some very interesting things, man. And this is, I was like, yeah, bring them on. So I'm gonna introduce them. All right. So our first guest, she's a mother of two boys and a little girl. We're gonna talk about that. She's a she's a graduate of North Carolina A&T State University. She's passionate about spreading positivity. She's got a strong love and faith for God. She is the author of God's ears are bigger than mine. And she comes from Smithfield, North Carolina. And I'm sure all of you have heard of that, right? If you haven't, I'll tell you a little bit about it. It's the home of the red hot dogs. If you know anything about red hot dogs back in the day, so Smithfield, North Carolina, right? But she's the author of, once again, a children's book called God's Ears Are Bigger Than Mine. I got a little something to say about that too. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Miss Sonia Covington.
What's up, Booker? Thank you for having me.
Yes,
I'm excited
absolutely.
to be here tonight.
I'm glad you decided to join us. Okay. All right. And my next guest, I gotta give me something to drink. Hey, give me some drink. Cause her bio is off the chain, buddy. I'm probably the show might end right here. No, so either way, she's a long-time dedicated educator, turned author, turned publisher. She's a storyteller. She's a mother. She's a wife. She's an entrepreneur. Coming from Durham, North Carolina, now living in Greensboro, North Carolina, my hometown. Boom, boom. All right. So listen, she's also an alumni of North Carolina A&T State University. Aggie Pride. We're gonna get us a big Aggie Pride before we get out there. She is the CEO and owner of Next Chapter Bookstore and Gift Shop. Right? She is the author of I Fit In Just Right. Through Our Eyes, and I think it's Me and My Family. Am I right on that? Yeah. So she is also the CEO of her own publishing company, Waybash and Worthington. There's a story behind that, how she came up with that. We'll talk about that. She's very passionate entrepreneur, and she's a creative force. Ladies and gentlemen, Sharika Carpenter Stanley in the building.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it, Coach.
Don't you feel like you want to run out like it's game time now?
Yes.
Introduction, it's game time.
Yes, I love it. I love a good intro. I do.
Yeah. Sometimes, hey, somebody did an introduction on me one time, and I was like, they can't be talking about me.
Right.
Like, they talking about me? Okay, I'll take that.
I did all that.
Yeah, I did all that. Yeah, you never know, man. You do so much, and you know what I mean. You're accomplishing so much. You never know. People got to give you your flowers, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes we go unnoticed. All the great things that we do, right? So when I get people on here, I'm trying to give them their flowers. All right. So
Absolutely.
listen. So let's get right to it. What this can be for both of you guys, and I want both of you guys to answer this question for me. And it's very simple. What inspires you to write children's book? What inspired you to say, you know, I'm gonna take the time all out of all the books in between, everything you could have written. You both are from historic places. Greensboro have a lot of history. A&T has a lot of history. Durham has a lot of old history too. You could have written about anything. You wrote about kids, which I love that, right? So, but what inspired you, Sonia? You want to speak on that?
Okay. I've always known that I was supposed to write a children's book or a book of some sort. And early on, when my children were younger, um, I couldn't put pen to paper or figure out how I wanted to start the book. And we had a character that my younger son had drawn. It was a huge character he drew on a poster board. And I thought, okay, that would be the character for my book. And when we moved, we lost the character. So I am a breast cancer survivor. So my mom said, "You're going to write a book." She prophesied that to me. And I thought to myself, well, I don't want to write about breast cancer. And I love children. I've always been around children, had children around me. Our boys play sports together. So always had children around. And in 2022, a lot of things happened in my life. And I've been listening to a lot of positive ministers and teachers. And one day I was in a room listening to a podcast, and the minister said God turns his ears or tunes his ears to hear. And in 10 minutes, the book instantly dropped into my spirit. And I took a piece of paper from my printer and I wrote, "God's ears are bigger than mine." The whole book. It just came to me just like that. And just through some fine tuning that year and editing, that's how "God Ears Are Bigger Than Mine" was born. And children, like I said, it comes natural to me to love children and being around children. And I know that there's a message to get out to the generations to come. A lot of things that we see happening in our world today. And I thought if we can get to the younger generation now, and also through my books, with hopes as their parents read them to them, or as they read them, it will change something in them.
Certainly. We're gonna talk more about that. About what you just ended on. What about you, Miss Sharika? What inspired you to same question.
Yeah, I would have to say the same as Sonya. I mean, when she said it dropped in 10 minutes, same exact thing happened. And for me, I knew, I mean, just growing up, that was my way of expressing myself always, just by writing. And that still is. It still is the way that I express myself the best way. But when it comes to children's books, I feel like a child's voice is so pure. And with children's books, adults learn from them too. You know what I mean? Because you can write an adult book and a child may not get it. But when it comes to a children's book, everybody gets it. And so I think that's the draw for me. And just like Sonya, when it came to I fit in just right. Well, like I said, I knew years ago that I wanted to write books. I had always said, you know, whether it makes it to my children's bookshelf or Barnes and Noble, I'm going to write a book. I knew that in my spirit just because. But one night I was holding my daughter, who is now 14, but she was a baby at the time, holding my daughter in my arm. And I was like, babies fit in just right, you know, and all these little cracks and crevices of they fit in just right. And just like she said, as soon as I put my daughter down, I ran to my computer and I started typing. And within, like you said, within minutes, it was done. But it sat on my computer from 2011 until 2020. I did not even publish it until 2020, went during the pandemic, when I decided to make the leap from being an educator to an author. Wow. And then with Through Our Eyes, that was a tribute to Vice President Kamala Harris. But you talk about Women's History Month. That was a day of history for me. We watched it as a family. And so I wanted to capture that moment of us watching everything that day. We had on our chucks and pearls, and, you know, it was an exciting time. No matter where you sit on the political, you know, where your political views are, it was history. And so for me, I was like, I know I'm going to capture this day. I'm just not sure when. And it came later on that night. I was watching something about Amanda Gorman, who was the poet that day, the young lady that was the poet. And I was scrolling through my Instagram and saw a picture, and immediately, same thing dropped in my spirit. I started about 12, about maybe 4 o'clock that morning, I was finished. So that, I mean, again, it's a child's voice is so pure. And I think we all get something from a child's voice, but I don't want to just write children's books. I know that too about myself.
Right.
So, yeah.
So that's awesome. Good. Great. I mean, very great stories. I know you guys probably have a lot of stories in between that you can tell about your journey. So yeah. How about that? Tell us a little bit about your journey from when it drops in your spirit to the nights where you're sleeping with the pencil in your hand, or you take that one piece of paper where you done wrote something, you just ball it up like, no, I got to start over. Tell me a little bit about the actual journey, the experience, getting started, and then putting that last dot, saying, this is it, right? Tell me a little bit about yours, Sonia. Tell me a little bit about your experience.
So for me, being a first-time author, and I will be honest, Sharika, I didn't always know that I write a book, or I was always into drawing. Drawing runs in my family. Like, I can picture my books, but I don't draw them. I have an illustrator. So when I finished my book, of course, I let a couple of people read it. My children, my brother, my aunt, a friend. And I honestly didn't know what to do. I had no idea. So through much prayer, I had to pray about it. God's ears were ringing. He was like, okay, Sonia, God's ears are bigger than mine. So I was like, God, what do I do? Like, I knew he gave it to me and I wanted to get it out. And at the time, it wasn't about making a lot of money from my book, because several people are publishing books. We see that on Amazon every day. But I knew it was something that God needed to get out into the world. So I started researching, and eventually I came to a point where I started doing some paid publishing where you pay for it yourself. I sent my manuscript to a few different publishing companies, interviewed with a few of them. And, they told me how much it would be. And of course, I'm like, wow, because most of the time you have to write several books before you even see any decent income from them, if then. Right. So, or to even recoup your money back if you pay to publish them. By the time I got to, say, like the fourth publishing company, they said, well, we do children's books, but we don't have illustrators. So they gave me a list of illustrators, and I just started researching on IG, Instagram, different places, and I came across an illustrator. I looked at a lot of his pictures, and I reached out to him. And when I finally got in contact with him, and it was only God, he and his wife both are publishers. She does editing and he does illustrations. And his name is Jason Velasquez. And we've never met in person, but we often talk on the phone. He's awesome. And Jason actually said, hey, I can illustrate your book. I can help you publish your book. I can help you with your web page. So he was God sent. Everything that I needed, I found in him as far as getting my book out. So I wrote my book in October 22, and it was published November the 6th of 23. Within that year, and so many things happened in my life, but because God had already orchestrated getting that in motion, I had a lot of things coming against me, but I just kept pressing to get the book out there, because there are certain times in your life, just like now with you, Coach Booker, that you're doing this, that God is telling us to move to do certain things, and we have to strike at the right time.
Absolutely.
It was the right time for me to get God's ears are bigger than mine moving, so that I can move on to the next book.
What about you, Miss Sharika?
Same. I love, Sonia, I love how our stories are very parallel to one another. Like I said, I was an educator for 20 plus years, and I had written, I've been just right in 2011, left it on the computer. And then in 2020, I knew it was time for me to leave education. I knew, and the pandemic pushed it. And I would have to say too, I felt like a hypocrite because I would tell my students, my students and my children, go for your dreams, all along knowing I had this dream sitting on the inside of me. And I was like, I've got to go for it. And so when I left education, I felt such a peace. And so I tell people all the time, I took that leap and I hit the ground running. And so as soon as I did that, everything started to fall into place. So that's what Sonia, when you say that, everything started to fall into place. I left in 2020, June of 2020, found a woman that helps people self-publish, Crystal Swain Bates, shout out to Crystal. And she was doing a master class for a week or something about children's books, writing children's books. And I did that master class. This was in July of 2020. Did her master class, found my illustrator just like you in a Facebook group, found her. She's in Haiti, just like you. Never met her in person, but she and I communicated through Zoom. And then I published my book in November of 2020. So you're talking July of 2020 and published my book in November of 2020. And so it was amazing for me. Same thing happened in January of 2021. I wrote that one, of course, on Inauguration Day, and then published that one in November of that same of 2021. So, and right now, same thing. I'm working on a set of 4 board books right now. Found the illustrator through Instagram, through just seeing his work. And now we're almost done with the first one, getting ready to start on the second one, and the third one, and the fourth one, So, and I've got books sitting on my computer now waiting on an illustrator. So it's amazing how God moves once we start to move. He's waiting on us. He's just waiting on us. And once I took that leap, it was like, okay, sis, here we go. And it's been such an amazing ride for me. And so, yeah.
So it's funny. You guys have to build a team, and your team might be someone that you never met before. Your illustrator, you never met them before.
Absolutely.
So basically God connects that dot, right? Someone that fits within the culture and the character of who you are, right? That's kind of who your illustrator is, somebody who kind of believes in your vision, right? So you kind of tell them your story, what you want, this character that you're trying to create. Yeah, let's talk. How do you approach the process of creating a character and storylines that keep your readers kind of captivated and stimulated? How do you create this character? Like, how do you bring that person to light to make your readers and just stay captivated? Because these are books that most right now is social media. Everybody just goes on social media. How do you now capture someone that wants to pick up a book that you wrote, right, and read it, right? How does that work? Did you think about that when you wrote it? Like, is anybody gonna really read this book?
Well, I can safely say for me, remember I told you guys, I knew from the beginning I wanted to write a book, and I just said, even if it makes it just to my children's bookshelf. And so they're my first audience every time. If I get a thumbs up from them, then I know it's like, okay, I did that, just like the board book. My nephews were in town, and my brother and my sister-in-law were in town the other day. And like I said, it's still it's in the illustration phase. And I sat down with him, and he's 5. Yeah, he's 5 years old. Sat down with him and read it to him, and his eyes lit up. I was like, yes. So that's for me. If I get excited about reading it, and my closest people, my closest circle gets excited about reading it, for me, it'll find its audience. It'll find its people that are supposed to read it from there, because not every book is meant for every person. But if I feel like if I'm excited about it and I can read it, then guess what? Then it'll find its people. That's how it works for me.
I agree. For me, the children's books, the illustrations are major because the pictures draw the children in.
There you go.
My first book, God's Ears Are Bigger Than Mine, I wanted a child to read that and to be able to put themselves in that book. I really didn't want it to be about a race, a sex, color, anything like that. Now we did, end up having to do that. But in that book, my child, the main character, does not have a name, or the name is not listed there.
Okay.
So I wanted every child to be able to put themselves in that place. Now, I do have some follow-ups I've written, just like Sharika. I have some follow-ups I've written to God's Ears Are Bigger Than Mine. And I also have a book that I'm currently working on. Now, that book is about two little girls. And my illustrator asked me, well, how do you want your characters to look? And, the same thing. I want children around the world to be able to read my books. I don't want someone to pick it up and just say, oh, this is a book about African Americans or, this race or that race or boy, girl. I want them to be able to see themselves in the stories.
Interesting, because I was going to ask, that was probably one of my questions to you guys, is how do you incorporate that diversity in your writing and in your stories? Are you just looking for, like you just said, do you want to just streamline it to where you just got African Americans only picking it up like, okay, this is all African American? How do you kind of explained it just now about the diversity on being able to capture every kid, any race. What about you, Sharika? Now, I think some of your books kind of look
mine are black. They are, yeah, they are. they are black, and intentionally so. I mean, but here's the thing for me, just like Sonia said, it even though initially they may not see themselves in it, once they start to read, I've received so many pictures of little white kids reading I Fit In Just Right. I have pictures on my phone of kids. They love it, holding the book and want their parents to read it every night because it talks about family. And right. Everybody can relate with that. It talks about auntie. It talks about Paw and Meemaw. Like they call their grandparents that. It talks about uncles, and it talks about mommy and daddy and my big brother. They have big brothers too and little sisters too. So that part they can relate to it. So mine was intentional just because I know that there's a void, So mine is a little bit intentional right now, but some of the ones that I know that I'll write more will have more diversity. Now, the one Through Our Eyes, it's about Inauguration Day. So it has everybody in there. It has all the sights and sounds from that day. So you see, Black, white, Hispanic, you see all of the people from that day. So that it is diverse in that way. That's more historical, and just a poetic tribute. But the books that I'm writing, there is an intentionality, and there will be diverse characters throughout. I think kind of what Sonia said, the kids they'll see themselves in it, through the illustrations. Illustrations are major. That's one of the things that I get all the time. Who is your illustrator? Because she's amazing, But definitely wanting to just writing themes that are universal helps out too,
Yeah,
So when kids see that, family, they all can relate.
Yeah. So you had a deferred 12 years, you said.
Yes.
Sharika, right?
Yes.
So you and a friend girl, sister, friend, whatever, you stated that you kind of you had that list, and I thought it was very interesting that you said you had 100 things, do, be, or have. This is what I want to do, this is what I want to be, and this is what I want to have. That list, right?
Yes.
And you stopped at 18.
No, I didn't stop at 18. I said number 18 was to write a book.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
Because
you didn't stop at 18. And I was going to ask you that.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to ask you that. I was like, okay, so so after 18, did she finish?
No.
Right there.
She challenged us that day. It was 3 of us, and she challenged the 2 of us to write down 100 things that we, like you said, that we wanted to do, be, and have. And at the time, even one of those 100 things was to have my daughter. At the time, I didn't even have my daughter. She's 14 now. I knew I wanted a girl. I wrote that down. I knew I wanted to have my own business. I now own my own business. So it blesses me to look back at those 100 things and see how many I've accomplished. Now, one thing I have not done, and you just made me realize that I need to do it, is to just check and see how many I've done. Right. You know what I mean? Give myself a few flowers to say, girl, look what you did, Yeah.
Yeah. And do you think your educational background was kind of the driving force, in some of the things that you're doing with the children's book, writing the children's book? You think your educational background just kind of was a heavy influence on a lot of it? and kind of gave you that
Absolutely.
momentum to.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
the teacher in me never goes away. It never goes away. That's why one of the things, even though I own the bookstore, and I love being in the bookstore, I love going out in the community and still reading to children and going to classrooms and reading on virtual readings and story times. I still love that. The educator in me never goes away. Everything that I do, I mean, I've been a teacher since a little girl. You know, when you played school, I always wanted to be the teacher. I always wanted to be the teacher. So I think that part of me never goes away. That DNA of educator is in everything that you see me do. Everything.
Right. So
Yeah,
so
it's in my fiber.
great. So Sonia, how do you kind of, and this would be for both of you, but how do you kind of balance all of it? The being a mother,
Mm.
right? Being a mother, working a regular job, um, uh, being just, how do you balance all of it? Still writing, and then of course I know what comes last, being a wife, your husband. And like we're gonna get to him.
No.
We're gonna. I don't know. I don't know what the order is. I'm just assuming that that's how that works. But
You had to slide it in, right?
yeah. So tell me a little bit about that.
Oh man, it's hard. I have many notebooks. I have a work notebook, financial notebook, and I use my calendar on my cell phone a lot to keep up with what's going on in my life. So at times it is hard to balance. And as women, we want to try to do everything sometimes. It's just innate, it's in us to be wives, mothers. We work. Like I'm listening to Sharika and a lot of things that she's saying. Like we do have a lot of things in common, and it's funny. We probably would have crossed paths at A&T because my first major was education. And I changed it, and sometimes I think I should have stuck with my first love, what I wanted to do. But it can be a challenge because right now, and you said we'll touch on that, in my life, I am in a place that I did not see myself being at 51 years old. So it's quite different. I live by, like I said, my calendar, alarms, and my notebooks.
Right. So, but once you start writing, you kind of, everything seems like you guys are so passionate about what you do that you kind of trapped inside the lines, and you block out all the noise and you dialed in on getting it done, right? So
Right.
I kind of like that, yeah, because you have to kind of block out the noise. You know what I'm saying? You kind of got to isolate yourself, and dial in on that one thing that you're trying to finish, right? That chapter or whatever, or trying to get to the end. So you got to really be patient and focus on trying to block out the noise and all the stuff. Plus, you, Sonia, have two kids that's one kid graduated college already, or still, right? Trey,
Yes, he graduated in 22. He and Justice both.
right? So then you got
Yes,
Josh, right?
I
Who's
do.
in
Who's a
college now.
freshman.
He's a college sophomore, right? Something like
He's
that.
a freshman.
Freshman, all right,
Yes.
cool. But then the interesting story comes with this 2-year-old. What is she? Is she 2?
She's not two. She just turned 16 months on yesterday.
16 months. Y'all still do the 16, 17, 18, 36, 58 months.
He's a
I,
year
I,
old.
I get it.
He's a
So she's
year
a year.
and 4
All right.
months. Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that and how that happened.
Okay, so as I was saying earlier, a lot had transpired in my life in 22, 23. And in 23, when I dropped my youngest son off at college, and before that, I had another child living with me that I took to college that June. Again, children, I don't know how it happens. Before I got KJ, the little girl, I had asked God, I said, God, can you give me at least 6 months? But I was actually kind of being sarcastic because I already saw myself vacationing, being an empty nester. Like I teased my friends. I said, oh, I'm going to be on the beach. I had it all planned out what I was going to do, write my books, work on that. work towards retirement. Like I had it all in my mind. And when I took my youngest son to college, my dad got sick. He actually passed a few days later. And when I went home and I saw my family, there was a baby. I'd only seen her one other time. And I just kept looking at him like, oh, something's different about her. That's what I kept saying to myself. When I got back, once everything was settled with my dad, and I came home and I was talking to my husband, I said, I don't know why I feel like in my spirit, here I go again in my spirit, that I'm going to have to take care of the baby. And I said, well, how do you feel about that? Or would you be okay if I did that? And he says, sure. And Keith knows my husband. He's very laid back.
Yeah.
So he probably say the same thing about me. I'm bossy. I'm the boss. So anyway, I kid you not, 2 weeks later, her grandmother who was taking care of her had a stroke.
Wow.
And about a week after that, I was going to pick her up. And she has been with me since September the 22nd. And it has been different, not what I planned, but I also know that God's plans are not my plans, and my plans are not God's plan. Whatever he says goes. But everything has worked out. She's actually been very fun for my husband and I to have around. She's going to keep us young. But at the same time, I'm like, God, give me my daily bread because I can't think ahead to school and all those things. But she came, she fits right in with us. And I have to give a shout out to my babysitter, LaTanya Booker.
Oh my God.
And Coach Booker, who I'm
Lord.
thankful for. So, no, it's been different, but I finally got to a place because at first it was a lot, but I finally got to the place I said, you know what, God, thank you for entrusting me and thinking enough for me to be the one to take care of her.
Awesome. So Sharika, how do you balance your schedule? Because you have a lot going on.
Oh my God. Yeah. Again, Sonia, we are kindred spirits. If I showed you all my phone right now, my calendar is color coded just so I'll know whose thing is where. Because if it doesn't make my phone, it's not going to happen. I live by, I had to turn off my 8:30 notification tonight. I was like, ooh, I got to turn it off because I live by alarms too. Because the 8:30 lets me know 9 o'clock, I got to go pick up my daughter from dance. So for me, it's a juggling act, and it is. And I have a 23-year-old son who's at A&T. He's a kinesiology major. He's a senior there. And then I have a junior at Dudley who is my soccer beast. And so he has soccer games. We got soccer tomorrow night. You know, he's a junior at Dudley. And then I have a freshman who is Miss Everything. And if you think of anything arts, singing, dancing, I got to shout her out because she's Dorothy in the Wiz. So if you can come out to Dudley and see it April 25th through the 27th, my baby is Dorothy.
That's my alumni. So, you know.
Yeah. So, you know, so balancing all that. And then I have a bonus daughter who she's 30. She lives in Georgia. And then I have a husband and a whole bookstore that has 90 plus people in it. So balancing that, it can be tough. It can be tough. And like Sonia said, you know, oftentimes for us as women, we do feel like we can do it all. But one of the things that I'm finding out is that I can't, you know.
Right.
I have to delegate. Like right now, like tonight, I had a young man that volunteers on Thursday nights for me at the bookstore, which I love, you know. He volunteered because he loves books. It works out for me. He comes from 5 to 8 and you know, that's covered. So it's a blessing for me. I have to figure out ways to do it. And I have to give a shout out to my husband first, because he has been I mean, you know, I always say him and God did their thing when it comes to financially putting us in a place where I could leap and safely run after my dreams. You know what I mean? Because I say him and God, I say you and God did your thing. Y'all set that plan up, and financially we were able for me to go for my dreams, you know. And then secondly, the Wyatt family, who is Ben's Voice. That's where my bookstore is located, inside of their restaurant and friendly center. And so it's a blessing because I see so many bookstores who are brick and mortar who are no longer with us because it's, the economy is tough right now. But because of them being there and established and all the customers that they get coming through Ben's Boys, I get that opportunity to be there, and I get those customers coming through. So shout out to the Wyatt family and all the Ben's Boys employees who ring up books when I'm not there, So I'm blessed in that manner. But it is a balancing act because at the end of the day, here's the other person I have to think about is myself, because if I'm down with my health or anything, none of that happens. None of those things happen. So trying to balance that as a woman, it is tough as a mother. And I couldn't imagine a 2-year-old. Oh my Lord. I can't, Sonya, bless your heart. Because I'm juggling, like I said, I'm juggling 23, 17, and 14 right now. So I could not even imagine 2 years old. So, but I'm blessed with a network of people that help me out and keep me sane and check on me, and just ask, sis, are you okay? Because that's important. Because like I said, if I'm not okay, then none of this runs like it's, like it's supposed to.
Absolutely. Yeah. Having that support team is definitely super.
It is huge. It is huge.
Yeah. So we're a little bit over the time limit, but this conversation is so good. You guys okay? I got a couple more questions. If you guys want to, we're just vibing, right?
Yeah, we're good. Yes. We're good.
All right, cool. So just for both of you guys, are there have any favorite authors that has inspired you, any female authors or just your favorite authors, period, that might influence your writing styles potentially? Do you have anyone that you can just kind of point out to say, I kind of like that, I like their vibe, the way they write. Do you have any that kind of inspired you, Sonya, your writing style maybe?
None per se as far as my children's books. But of course I enjoyed Michelle Obama and several others. My children's books, I would say, are more spiritual. Like the one I'm about to put out now, I actually woke up with that vision and wrote it right away on the side of my bed. So I read more inspirational books, or daily books. That's what I'm into. And I'm also working on those like Sharika. I want to do other books besides children's books, but those are my first.
So it seemed like you would be probably interested in doing some inspirational, possibly even quotes, instead of writing the actual book, just some good quotes, because I'm telling you, I read a lot of inspirational quotes.
Yeah.
That's a lot of that.
Quotes daily. Daily journaling, and things to help push people along the way in life. A lot of us get stuck in certain areas in our life and we can't see ourselves moving forward into the things and plans for our lives. So yes, I like those types of books.
What about you, Sharika?
Same for me. There was no inspiration for my children's books, but when I was at A&T, Terry McMillan was my girl. Oh my Lord.
Yeah.
I love Terry McMillan. And even though she was an editor for Essence, and I think she's written books. Susan Taylor was, and I say it all the time, like she was a mentor. She didn't even realize it, but her in the spirit that she would write in the back of Essence. Her writing for me always resonated with me. I would, when I used to get, back in the day when we used to actually get the magazine, I would turn to the back page immediately. Her In the Spirit was in the back page. So she was a huge inspiration. And then another author that I love is she's your Winston-Salem alum, Trice Hickman. I love her books as well. So nobody really inspired my writing style. I'm kind of like Sonya. That's inspirational. I can hear something, and that's something about creatives. That's why I pick it up with Sonya too. You hear something and you got to write it down. That's the other thing that's in my phone. Just little snippets. I can hear something. I'm like, ooh, I got to write that down. I have to put that in my notes, and then later on it becomes a line in a story, a line in a book or whatever. So Not necessarily my writing style. No one swayed that, but definitely I have favorite, authors that I love to read. So yeah.
Yeah. So great. Yeah. It's always for me, I'm kind of like that too. I don't really have anybody that kind of inspires me. I inspire me, my spirit. Yeah, I inspire me to go. So so um so what message is it that either one of you, both of you guys, what message are you trying to convey through your writing, like to the
Excuse me.
world, to the people, to the viewers, to the kids, to whomever? What message are you actually trying to convey to everyone
Well,
out there?
for me, my first book, God's Ears Are Bigger Than Mine, it's more so about prayer. There, especially during COVID and people were home alone, they didn't have anyone. Some didn't have any family. And even with our children being out of school and not really having others to connect to, mental health became a serious matter. I mean, it was always a serious matter, but
It
we
still
saw it
is.
more than ever.
Yeah.
Yes, it still is. And just allowing them to know, hey, God hears us when we pray. That's what I'm conveying in my first book. And my next book is about helping others.
Right.
A lot of time we get caught up on ourselves and what we have, we don't have. And if we can help someone else along the way, God is going to make sure that we have everything that we need. It's about helping someone, showing someone the way. I mean, you know that with your coaching, if you can take a child and show them the way, and helping the next generation to become and do better
Right.
than what we are and have
Right.
more than what we have.
Right.
That's what I like to convey in my books. It's helping someone else.
What about you, Sharika? Because you have three different books, but are they conveying all the same message, or are there different messages that's being conveyed that you would like to convey out to the public?
You know what? I hadn't even thought about it until you just asked. I would probably say my common thread is joy. Like, I mean, even in the ones that I'm writing now, it's probably just Black joy. I mean, for me, I think I think I read it somewhere where it said, teaching my children Black joy is healing as well.
Mm,
That's generational. That's breaking a generational curse as well.
Mhm.
And so I think for me, when I look at it now, because I hadn't thought about that, what's the common thread or what message trying to convey. And I think with I fit in just right, I was definitely trying to convey, no matter what your family situation looks like, you fit into, because that's why when you said your 2-year-old and you said she fit in right in, that's why I
mm.
pointed to you. I was like, yeah, no matter what that family structure looks like, you fit into it just right. So I know for that's what I was conveying. But when I look at the fiber and the underlying messages of all of my books, it probably is joy. I mean, it is. It's the just being joyful.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So two great messages. So lastly, I like to ask you guys to just give us a message to some of the inspiring young women that's out there that want to get to where you are, that just haven't quite gotten there yet, but they just need some inspirational words or something that a word that you would convey to a young inspiring writer that wants to get to where you are. What's your message to them so they don't give up, so they stay, you know, in between those lines and finish? What's your message, Sonia?
As you said, I like to convey don't give up. I am 51 years old, and I really feel like right now in my life that I'm just getting started. Because I think that at this age, once you've gone through your teenage years, college years, the years of raising your children, you're now finding out who you really are and what God's purpose is for your life. Yes, some people know it early on, but it's like we have that inkling in us that we know we can do more and there is more. And so, even in your trials and tribulations, and when things don't seem to go your way, out of that is a lesson, and it's all pushing you towards the purpose in your life. So pray, trust God, ask Him to lead you. And as we said earlier, like read some inspirational things and listen to inspirational messages that help push you into being your best self and forward into the direction that you want to go. Oftentimes we look at other people and we see what they have and think we want that, but we can't see ourselves doing it.
Right.
But we have to take a step, because at some point they had to step out on faith and take that step. So my message is, don't give up. Do the work. You have to do the work to get to where it is you want to go. And
That's
what
awesome. How do we get the viewers to find you? What your book? How do they get to your book? They want to buy your book. They want to invest in you. They want to find. Yeah, there we go. So you can say it right here. I'll make sure we put it on this on all my social sites on how to reach out to you. Do you want to just kind of say you're at whatever social media sites you're on or whatever?
Okay, yes. So my book, God's Ears Are Bigger Than Mine, is
that Josh in the middle?
No, it's
like
not.
Josh.
You know,
Okay.
I figured some would think that.
Yeah, it looks like Josh, but go ahead.
God's Ears Are Bigger Than Mine is on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, Target, and you can also, if you look my name up, Sonia Covington, it'll pop up online. You can go to my page, covingtonbooks.com, and there's a link on there to Amazon as well. And I also have my own company, Covington Books. So I will also be looking to help others publish their books in the near future.
Great. Sharika, same question to you about sending that message out to the young, to the young, inspiring authors and publishers and entrepreneurs. What's your message to them as they try to overcome? A lot of them overcoming adversities, things getting their way, being resilient and getting to where you are and stepping out on faith and all of that. How do they get? What's your message to the young women that's trying to get there?
I thought it was ironic that you said stay within those lines. That was the first thing you said. You said, how do you get them to stay within those lines? And that would be my message, to run your race. Like that. One of the things that I think we kind of mess up is we do look at other people, because when I have to say, when I first jumped out there to be an author, I saw so many other people doing everything, and I wanted to grab something from them and grab something, and all these kinds of things. And I was like, I became overwhelmed because I was not running. I was looking at everybody else's lane and not running my own race. And one of the things that I started to realize is, once I started running my race, during every leg of that race, God was putting the things that He wanted for me in my lane. What was for me was not outside of my lane. It was in my lane, and I ran right into it every single time. That's how I ran into becoming a bookstore owner. I stayed in my lane. And so I would encourage everybody to do that. Kind of like Sonia said, don't quit. One of my biggest and she talked about prayer. One of my biggest sayings that I live by is, with obedience comes peace. When I'm obedient to what I feel in my spirit and what I know in my gut, then I have such a peace about it, and then everything else falls into place. Definitely saying, just running your race, not looking to the side. Now I will say this. I did scout, you know how all of us are at, we talk about women's basketball and different things like that. There, you scout out the other team. So there were other things that I did see other authors doing, other bookstores. I follow all of the Black bookstores right now, because I do want to make sure I am in line with what they're doing. But then once I do that scouting, then it's my game. From there, I have to play my game. I have to run my race. And so that's what I continue to do. And I would say that to any young person. Yeah, find the people that you like, scout them. But once you scout them, then run your race, tweak it to your way, hear from, like Sonia said, I love that she said pray. I mean, just praying, writing it down. That's so huge. Bible talks about that, writing it down and making it plain. I wrote those 100 goals down, and think about that. It's something about writing it down that helps to manifest it. And so even when you don't even look back at it, because I can't tell you I've looked back at those goals. I told y'all I need to look and see how many I've accomplished because I haven't even looked back at them. But it's something about writing them down that is in biblical order. It's in the order of what the Lord wants us to do. But running your race, that's what I would tell anybody. Run your race, seek mentors, seek out, wisdom from people that know what they're doing, and here's the other thing. Don't be afraid for strangers to carry your dream. I found that more than anything. Like, you think you're going to rely on family and friends. There have been strangers that have mentioned my name in rooms that I'm not in. There are people that I just met that mention my room and names that I'm not in, So it's again, with obedience comes peace. Just being obedient to what God tells me and tells us, that helps me more than anything. And running my race,
Great message. How do they find you? How do they find you?
So you can find me. You can find me. I'm on Instagram and Facebook under author Sharika Carpenter Stanley. But then also the bookstore. Bookstore is Next Chapter Bookstore and Gift Shop on Facebook, and then on Instagram it's Next Chapter _ Ben's Boys with a Z. And I made a major faux pas. I did not have my books, but I looked in my little bag, and I do have. If you can see that. I'm in a book fair book that's Through Our Eyes.
Okay.
And then hold on, I'll show you right here. I fit in just right. So there we go.
Okay.
So I'm in a catalog for a book fair. I made the front cover, so that's kind of cool for me.
Oh, that's real cool.
But
that's
yeah,
awesome.
on Instagram and Facebook as myself. And then my website is my name, SharikaCarpenterStanley.com. Right now, we do not have a website per se for the bookstore where you can go on and order, but we are working on that. We are definitely working on that. But definitely come in, and if you're in Greensboro area, come to Friendly Center and come see me. We're at 2711 Grandview Avenue, located inside of Ben's Boys Restaurant. I would love to meet you. So whoever wants to come on by. And it's not just a bookstore, it's a gift shop. We have art. You can buy the art right off the walls. Jewelry, we have candles, we have puzzles, anything you think of, and it's all 90 plus Black vendors. So
I'll come and set up the whole podcast.
You said what now?
I want to set up the whole podcast right there at the.
Come on, let's do it.
Right?
Yeah, let's do it.
I have a couple awesome co-hosts that I co-host with. We come set it up. I'm from Greensboro, so
come on. Let's do it. Don't threaten, like my husband says, don't threaten me with a good time. Come on, let's go.
No, this has been an awesome interview. Very interesting. A lot of things that I've learned. You guys has inspired me. My ears are definitely not bigger than God. God is, it's a funny thing. When I read that, I said, I wonder if Sonya is telling Josh, don't now listen. You go up, you can go upstairs and mumble all you want to and talk all that trash if you want to. God can still hear you. God's ears are bigger than mine. I might not be able to hear you downstairs, but he can hear you upstairs. His ears are bigger than mine. So,
and I was gonna tell Sonya we need to hook up because, like I said, your book would have a home. Your book would have a home. Bring it on to next.
I can't wait to visit. I can't wait to visit.
We have a book signing this Saturday. This Saturday we have an author coming in.
Saturday, what time?
From 12 to 5. Come on through.
I might be able to make that. Now look, I can visit my baby at A&T, and I can also come to the store. So let me look. I'll put that in my calendar.
Yes.
Hey, and you know what? Sonya will pull up on you on that 3-wheeler too, and you'll be like, "Who in the world is this?" You pull up in that motorcycle now. She don't be playing.
I love it. Come on through.
Listen, they don't have a place to strap down baby seats. That's the
I know that's right.
That was a conversation I had with God. Now wait, I'm supposed to be riding in the slingshot this summer. How can I do that with baby?
Yeah.
So listen, you guys have been very inspirational. I'm definitely going to shout you out on my podcast. Hey, I'm probably going to send some of this stuff is going to be clipped. We're going to put it on some reels. I'm gonna add it to my story, so it's gonna be kind of ongoing. You're gonna look on social media, and all of a sudden you're gonna see yourself. But it's gonna go out to a lot of people. Listen, you guys are black, bold, beautiful, and boss ladies, and I like that, and I appreciate y'all coming. Okay,
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
I'm
you for
proud of
having
you
us.
too, Booker. I'm so proud of
Thank
you.
you.
appreciate it. I'm
Thank
proud
you.
of both of you guys, and y'all keep steadfast.
Yes, and shout out to Joyce because she was our connection.
Oh
So
yeah. You know, I'm gonna call sister-in-law and tell her thank you.
yes.
Yeah.
Tell her
So
thank
we'll talk to you guys soon. Okay.
All
All
right.
right.
Thank
You
you.
both take care.
Thank you.
Have a
Bye.
good one. Good night.